Most men think being good means saying yes, being easy, flexible, always available. They think kindness will earn them love, but it only earns them invisibility. Because the more you try to please, the less she feels you. You stop being a man, you become furniture, comfortable, useful, forgettable. A man isn't respected for how much he bends. He's respected for the line he refuses to cross. The line that separates a man. What separates a man from the furniture is one word: no. That word defines your edge. It draws the invisible line between being a man and being a servant. Most men never learn to say it. They fear the silence that follows. They fear her disappointment, her tears, her withdrawal. So they bend, they agree, they adapt. And every time they do, a small part of their fire goes out. You see, when she asks you to change your plans, to bend your principles, to drop something important to you, and you do it without question, you think you're being kind. You think you're showing love. But what you're really doing is teaching her something dangerous. You're teaching her that your direction can be moved with a sigh, a tear, or a threat. That your center doesn't belong to you. It belongs to whoever applies the most pressure. You're teaching her that your power is for sale, and all it costs is her disapproval. That's not love. That's self-betrayal disguised as romance. Every time you say yes when your soul screams no, you lose weight in her eyes. Because the truth is, a woman doesn't test you to destroy you. She tests you to feel you. She wants to know if you have roots or if you'll be blown away by her emotions, and when you stand firm, when you look her in the eye and calmly say, "No, that doesn't work for me." You trigger something ancient inside her, a quiet respect, a primal awareness that she's standing in front of a man who cannot be moved by mere emotion. That's the moment desire is born. Not because you dominate her, but because you won't let her dominate you. The word no is not aggression. It's not rejection. It's self-respect. It's the border between your world and hers. It's the sign that your spirit has a backbone. But let's be clear, not every no has power. A weak man's no trembles. He says it, but you can hear the fear in his voice, the anxiety of losing her, the silent hope that she'll still like him afterward. That's not a boundary. That's begging with a mask on. A real man's no comes from stillness. It doesn't shout, it doesn't defend, it simply stands, calm, grounded, undeniable. Because he knows his worth isn't up for negotiation. You don't owe anyone your peace, your time, or your self-respect. You owe them your honesty, and honesty sometimes sounds like no. Understand this. Women don't fall for perfect men. They fall for anchored men. Men who can feel emotion without being ruled by it. Men who can face storms without losing their center. Men whose silence feels heavier than her drama. That's why the calm no is magnetic. It's not about control, it's about composure. It's the unspoken signal that says, you can test me, but you can't move me. And once she realizes that, something shifts. Her mind quiets, her energy softens. Because now, she finally feels safe. Not in your weakness, but in your steadiness. This is the paradox most men never understand. She doesn't want a man who says yes to everything. She wants a man who says no, and means it. Because that no gives weight to your yes. It makes your love feel chosen, not convenient. So when you stand your ground, when you protect your schedule, your goals, your boundaries, you're not rejecting her. You're teaching her how to love you correctly. You're teaching her that your time has value, your presence has meaning, and your direction has purpose. And if she can't handle that, let her go. Because the moment you abandon your edge to please someone, you stop being a man and start being a cushion. Soft, safe, replaceable. There's a quiet power in being unshakable. In knowing that your value doesn't come from what you give away, but from what you refuse to compromise. The modern world tells men to be softer, more understanding, more available. But history remembers the men who had edges, the men who could love deeply without losing themselves. So remember this, every no you say from truth builds your throne. Every time you hold your line, you strengthen your frame. And every time you refuse to betray yourself for approval, you step closer to becoming the kind of man whose silence commands more respect than another man's words. Because the difference between a man and furniture is that furniture bends under pressure, a man doesn't. The pain that builds respect. When you say no, not with anger, not with arrogance, but with calm certainty, something changes. It's subtle at first. You feel the tension rise, the silence stretch, her eyes searching your face for weakness. She gets upset. Maybe she pouts, questions, or withdraws. But you don't move. You don't explain. You don't rush to fix the discomfort. Because you understand that silence, that moment of unease, is sacred. That pain entering the space isn't your enemy. It's your ally. It's not punishment. It's revelation. It shows her, in a way words never could, that you are not like the others. You're not a man she can sway with emotion. You're not a man who trades peace for approval. You're not afraid to lose her if keeping her means betraying yourself. That calm, grounded no, it's a mirror. It reflects her own patterns, her own chaos, her own need for control. And when she sees that you won't be moved, she's forced to see herself. That's the pain, the good kind, the kind that reorders things inside her. Because in that moment, something ancient wakes up in her subconscious: respect. It's the realization that she has finally met a man who doesn't yield for comfort. A man who doesn't chase validation. A man who stands still while everyone else bends. And that difference, the unshakable energy, fascinates her. Because what's rare becomes valuable, and what's valuable becomes irresistible. This kind of no doesn't need to be loud. It doesn't need anger, drama, or threats. It's quiet power, the stillness of a man who knows his worth so deeply that he doesn't need to prove it. His silence says everything his words never could. I don't explain my value. I live it. Because the moment you start convincing her, you've already surrendered the crown. You've turned power into negotiation. And kings don't negotiate with emotion. Not because she's lesser, but because your value is not up for debate. Your peace is not a bargaining chip. Your standards are not a topic for discussion. Every time you hold that line, every time you stay still when her emotions try to pull you out of center, you strengthen your foundation. You teach her something no lecture could. That real strength isn't about dominance or control. It's about stability. She doesn't truly crave a man who reacts to her feelings. She craves a man who can contain them, who can absorb the storm without becoming it. When she pushes and you don't break, she feels safe. When she tests and you don't chase, she feels respect. When she cries and you stay calm, she feels truth. Because your calm is her compass, your composure is her mirror, and your no, that single grounded word, becomes the line that defines your entire dynamic. See, most men believe that saying no will make them lose her. They think resistance equals rejection. But the opposite is true. Every time you bend out of fear, you shrink in her eyes. Every time you stand firm, you rise. That's why pain, the discomfort that comes from your boundaries, isn't something to avoid. It's something to master. Because that pain teaches her what no amount of affection ever could. That your presence is not cheap. That your attention is not automatic. That your love has standards. A king doesn't shout to prove he's a king. He doesn't explain why his rules exist. He simply holds his position, unmoved, unapologetic, unavailable for chaos. And that's what builds respect. Not the gifts, not the compliments, not the endless yeses, but the moments of silence when you refuse to betray yourself just to make someone else comfortable. That silence, that unwavering calm, is the foundation of real attraction. Because she can't manipulate it, she can only feel it. And when she feels it, when she realizes that your emotions belong to you and no one else, she begins to trust you. Not because you please her, but because you ground her. That's the paradox most men never understand. It's not the softness that builds connection. It's the structure. It's the discipline. It's the man who can hold his line while still holding her heart. So when the next test comes, when she gets angry, distant, or emotional, remember this: you don't need to explain. You don't need to justify. You don't need to fear losing her. You just need to stay still. Because the man who can stay still in the storm becomes the storm. He becomes the gravity she can't escape. That's the pain that builds respect. That's the silence that creates desire. And that's the no that turns an ordinary man into a king. The difference between needy and detached. There's a reason most men fail when they finally try to say no. Because they don't say it from power, they say it from fear. The needy man says no while trembling inside. He fears her silence, he fears her anger, he fears being left alone. So his no doesn't sound like strength, it sounds like hesitation. It's a shaky voice hiding behind false confidence. A no that's waiting to be forgiven. And deep down, she feels it. Because women don't listen to your words, they feel your energy. She senses the fear behind your tone, the uncertainty in your eyes, and that fear kills respect faster than any mistake. Because when you say no but secretly hope she'll still approve, you're not setting a boundary, you're begging for permission. But the detached man, he's built different. He says no with calm certainty. His no doesn't come from pride, it comes from peace, because he knows he doesn't need to win every battle to win the war. He's not trying to prove anything, he's not trying to be right, he's simply being real. You can feel the difference in his presence. He doesn't raise his voice, he doesn't defend his decision, he doesn't flinch when she gets emotional. He just stays still, grounded, composed, untouchable. That kind of no carries weight, because it's not a reaction, it's a statement. It says, I have nothing to prove, nothing to hide, and nothing to chase. And that energy is magnetic. Because she's surrounded by men who bend, explain, and justify, but rarely meets one who simply decides. That's the kind of no that forges respect. That's the kind of no that builds trust. That's the kind of no that shapes men history remembers. Not for what they said yes to, but for what they refused to surrender. When to use your no. So when do you use it? When the world starts testing what you stand for, when your values are being quietly challenged, when your time is taken for granted, your dignity traded for comfort, and your energy drained by those who only take but never give. That's when your no becomes sacred. Because your no isn't just a rejection, it's a revelation. It reveals your essence. It tells the world that you have structure, principles, and a backbone. And in a time where most people bend for validation, the man who can say no, calmly, confidently, and without apology, stands apart. Most men fear that word. They think saying no makes them rude, cold, or unlovable. So they keep saying yes to things, to people, to situations that drain their soul. But here's the truth. Every yes that violates your peace is a silent no to yourself. And every no to yourself kills a part of your strength, your clarity, your masculine center. Your boundaries are not barriers. They are gates that protect your energy, your focus, your peace. And no is the lock that guards your kingdom. So use it every time your integrity is on the line. Every time someone tries to buy your silence with affection or guilt trip you into betraying your values. Because the moment you surrender that, even a little, you stop being the author of your story and become a side character in someone else's script. Yes, your no will cost you. You'll lose moments, you'll lose opportunities, you might even lose people you once thought would never leave. But what you gain will redefine you. You gain self-respect, the currency that never devalues. You gain peace, the kind that can't be bought or borrowed. And you gain power, not over others, but over yourself. Because every no spoken from truth moves you closer to a life where you no longer beg to be loved, because your very presence commands it. A life where love isn't chased, it's magnetized, not through effort, but through authenticity. Not through noise, but through stillness. When a man says no from fear, it creates distance. But when he says no from truth, it creates gravity. It draws the right people in and filters the wrong ones out. It separates the ones who respect your soul from the ones who only wanted your attention. That's how respect is built, not through constant agreement, but through unwavering alignment with your principles. Never forget, your no defines you more than your yes ever will. Anyone can say yes. It takes strength to say no when comfort, connection, or approval are on the line. But that strength, that quiet, grounded courage, is what separates ordinary men from the ones who lead, inspire, and transform. So the next time you feel the pull to compromise your truth, remember this. Your peace is not negotiable. Your dignity is not a discount item. Your worth is not up for debate. Say no, calmly, firmly, without anger, without apology, because the man who knows how to protect his energy doesn't need to prove his power. He embodies it. He doesn't beg for respect. His presence demands it. He doesn't explain his standards. His energy enforces them. And that's when everything changes. Because when your life is built on truth, you stop chasing approval and start attracting respect. You stop begging to be loved because love now recognizes your strength. You stop explaining your worth, because those who can't see it were never meant to have access to it. No, you speak with conviction is a brick in the foundation of your power, and when that foundation is complete, you'll understand something most men never do. You were never meant to be chosen. You were meant to choose yourself, and once you do, once you master the art of no, the world stops testing you and starts respecting you. Because your no doesn't repel love, it refines it. It filters out everything weak, fake, and temporary, so only what's real remains. That's the power of a man who stands firm. A man who knows that peace is the highest form of power, and that a single word, spoken with truth and conviction, can build a kingdom no one can shake. The moment she sees the man. And when a woman meets a man like that, a man who cannot be bent, cannot be bought, and cannot be emotionally manipulated, something ancient stirs within her. It's not the usual spark of attraction she's used to. It's not the thrill of charm, looks, or status. It's something deeper, a primal recognition. Because somewhere in her subconscious, she realizes she's standing before a man who does not move for approval. A man who doesn't adjust his truth just to be liked. A man who doesn't trade his self-respect for temporary peace. Her usual tactics, the emotional storms, the subtle tests, the moments of manipulation, begin to fail. They lose their power in the presence of his stillness, because his calm speaks louder than her chaos. His silence holds more weight than her words, and slowly, something shifts. She starts to feel it, that rare energy she can't quite name. She's standing in the presence of a man who is unshakable. That's when everything changes. The testing stops. The walls she's built over years, the ones made of distrust, disappointment, and survival, start to crack. Not because he forces them down, but because his presence makes them unnecessary. For the first time, she feels something she's been unconsciously searching for all along. Direction. Not dominance, not control, but direction. The energy of a man who knows where he's going and doesn't need her permission to get there. And that direction, that steadiness, that emotional gravity, it makes her feel safe enough to exhale. Because in that moment, she isn't surrendering to you as a person. She's surrendering to what you represent, to the grounded, unwavering masculine that says, "I'm not here to be chosen, I am the choice." To the stillness that tells her, "You can lean, but you can't lead me." To that power that doesn't scream for recognition because it simply exists. Most men don't understand this. They chase her emotions, reacting, defending, explaining, trying to be understood. But a man who understands himself doesn't need to be understood. He lets her confusion collide with his clarity. He lets her emotional waves crash against the rock of his composure. And when the storm settles, what's left is safety, the one feeling that ignites true desire. Because a man who cannot be controlled creates security. And that kind of security, asepato emotional, energetic, masculine, is what she truly craves. It's not about the car you drive or the words you say. It's about the energy she feels when she realizes you can't be moved. That's the seed of attraction that never dies. Men like that, the rare few who stand firm, they leave a mark. Not because they are the loudest in the room. Not because they are the richest or the most handsome, but because they are unmoved. They are rooted. They are centered. Their presence commands attention without demanding it. When he speaks, his words carry weight. When he's silent, the room still feels him. He doesn't perform power. He is power. And that kind of power can't be imitated. It doesn't come from posture, tone, or dominance. It comes from alignment, from living a life where his words, actions, and emotions move in one direction, his truth, and that truth is untouchable. He will not betray himself, not for comfort, not for acceptance, not even for love. And that truth is magnetic. It draws her in without effort. Because women don't fall for men who give them everything. They fall for the man who refuses to lose himself while loving her. The man whose strength makes her feel something sacred, trust. And in that trust, attraction becomes devotion. So when you stand your ground, when you say no without fear, when you let her feel that your boundaries are not negotiable, you're not pushing her away. You're showing her where safety begins. Because safety doesn't come from control, it comes from certainty. And certainty is born in a man who knows who he is. That's the moment she sees you. Not as another man trying to win her attention, but as a force of nature she can't ignore. A presence that doesn't beg to be seen because it demands to be felt. A mystery she can't solve because you're not performing, you're simply being. Men like that are rare. That's why they are unforgettable, because they don't act powerful, they are power. And that power doesn't roar. It doesn't need to prove itself. It speaks through one quiet, unshakable word: no.